In this episode, we got a chance to sit down with Brynna Nguyenton, who is a first-year student in the Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genetic Counseling program. Brynna was featured in a DNA Today podcast earlier this year, but in this interview, she's able to discuss the highlights of the first month in KGI's genetic counseling program. Today, we get to welcome Brynna to the podcast, first-year Master of Science in Human Genetics and Genetic Counseling student. Brynna, how did you first become interested in coming to KGI?
I was first interested in KGI because they offered a super innovative program in genetic counseling that focused on pharmaceutical genomics, which is something that hasn't been offered before in the field of genetic counseling. Now
that you've been a part of the new genetic counseling degree program here at KGI for 1 month, what have been some of the highlights?
The highlights have definitely been meeting all of the great faculty that we have here, and just getting to bond with my cohort, I think, has been a really great experience. Just meeting people who share similar passions to you has been really inspiring and enriching, and it's very motivational.
Through the first courses that you're taking this semester, can you describe maybe in brief those and what's particularly interested you?
So for our first year, we've taken a pretty heavy course load. I believe it's about 17 to 18 units. Most days we're in class, and we usually take our course load currently is Genetic Counseling 1, Clinical Biostats, Medical Communications, Human and Molecular Genetics, as well as Disease Mechanisms and Embryology. And it's a lot of reading, very dense material, but because of the flipped classrooms, it's also very interactive in that we watch the lectures and do the readings the night before, and then come into class prepared knowing the things that we need to know, and then apply them through group activities and presentations.
Internships, rotations, fieldwork is always a key part of the student experience here at KGI. Can you describe how fieldwork will fit into the 2-year program here at KGI?
So currently we don't have any rotations in the fall semester, but in the spring we will have some observations coming up where we'll get to shadow some genetic counselors and kind of see what their day-to-day is like. And then our rotations will actually begin in the summer of 2019. And this is where we can choose to either stay local or go to other states or other clinics that aren't within California and kind of see what they do on a day-to-day basis, but also have a hands-on approach to it as well.
Sounds like you're busy enough in this fall semester, but are there any organizations, clubs at KGI that you've already joined, or maybe some that you're looking to join?
So yes, I actually have recently signed up to be a part of the Rare Disease Club at KGI, and it's actually a NORD chapter, so it's very official. We apparently, from what I've heard, there's a lot of interconnectedness with the NORD Association, so it's great to be a part of something like that and spread awareness to rare diseases. And I've also recently joined, it's called the STEM Incorporated Committee, and it's a very recent committee on campus, and it's basically a group of either women of color or women in the STEM fields, or basically minorities in the STEM fields, and they get together to try to bring more advocacy to the group and kind of shine light on opportunities that present themselves. As also the main goal is trying to have a STEM center at KGI, so I think that's the ultimate goal. But I haven't been to a meeting yet, but so far it seems very promising.
And we know you've been very active in terms of your professional development from listening to the podcast you did over the summer, I believe, through DNA Today. Can you describe how you were connected to that podcast and the people involved there?
Yes, so it's actually a kind of long-winded story, but I'll try to keep it brief. So basically what happened was that I'm very active on the genetic counseling forums online. It's just basically a place where genetic counseling applicants can discuss their applications and kind of vent to each other, and it's a really great meeting place. And I met Kira Deneen through that, as well as she was taking one of the biostats classes that I took over the summer, biochemistry classes. And she was in my class, it was online, and I met her at another grad school interview I had in Philadelphia at Thomas Jefferson. And we kind of solidified our friendship there. And from there, we kind of brainstorming in terms of what we wanted to bring to the podcast, where we talked to prospective applicants. And I think it was a really great process overall. And it's exciting to embark on this journey with her because she's starting genetic counseling as well. So it's exciting to have someone who's also in the same shoes as me and kind of collaborating.
I also know you're active on Twitter. How has that been helpful to you in terms of networking and finding resources within the field?
So before, I wasn't quite as active on social media because I felt it was more of a distraction throughout my studies, and it's easy to get caught up in other people's lives in terms of seeing where they're at after high school or things like that. But recently, I've had a change of heart, especially about Twitter. So I created LinkedIn first as a professional account to network with other genetic counselors as well as other professionals that I meet in the field. And I realized there was a huge genetic counseling conversation going on Twitter, and a lot of genetic counselors just talking to each other about current cases they've seen or just advocating for the field and genetics education, which I'm really passionate about. So I decided to join Twitter, and I really like the community. It's very open, very educational, and I would highly recommend anyone who's interested in genetic counseling to check out the hashtag GCChat or hashtag genetic counseling. There's a wealth of information that I think would be really beneficial to anyone who's interested.
In total, there are 14 students within the genetic counseling program this year, including yourself. Can you describe the diversity of the backgrounds within that group?
I would say that the program director as well as the faculty who are on the admissions board did a really great job in picking a variety of students from diverse backgrounds and just having us all mesh really well together. So we have our youngest in the cohort is someone who recently just graduated. So she's 22. And the oldest, she has 3 children. So it's a great in between. And then between that, we have like a bunch of people that are, in their 20s and 30s. And we all get along really well. And we even have our one male in the group. So it's great to add that little sprinkle of diversity in there.
Piggybacking on the question about the podcast you did recently with DNA Today, but what are one or two pieces of advice you would give to someone who's considering applying to a genetic counseling master's program?
I would say my first piece of advice would to really make sure that genetic counseling is the right fit for you. It's a great profession, but it's not meant for everybody. So I would say to email every genetic counselor you can find, contact them in any way, shape, or form, and just try to get that shadowing and seeing that firsthand experience of what's it like day to day in the clinic or in the hospital or wherever, just to get a good feel for what the profession is like. And I would recommend, trying to get in touch with other genetic counseling students as well. Everyone in the profession is super helpful, and they all want people to succeed. And it's a great resource for prospective applicants. And I was also encourage people who are interested in genetic counseling to check out this blog I'm working on as well. I'm working with Olivia and Jade, who are genetic counselors in Florida and Los Angeles, respectively, and they've created a really great resource for prospective students as well. It's called mapsandgenes.wordpress.com, and it has a wealth of information that would be really helpful for future applicants.
Lastly, we know genetic counselors can enter into a wide range of settings within industry, healthcare. Do you have an idea of where you want to end up, or do you feel that will shift as you progress through the next 2 years?
So right now I kind of have a general idea of where my interests lie in terms of specialties. I'm very interested in neurological genetic disorders and psychiatric disorders. So I'm thinking of going somewhere along that route and maybe doing having like a clinical specialty as well, because I'm really interested in the patient and counselor interaction. But I mean, it's still so early on. I haven't done rotations yet, but I'm really interested to see other subspecialties like cancer, prenatal, and pediatrics, as well as how it applies to things like the biotech industry, private clinics versus public hospitals. So I'm pretty open, but I think that just having that hands-on experience at KGI will really help me to identify my areas of interest.
Well, we really appreciate you taking a breather from the intense course load you have going on this fall semester. We can't wait to see the impact you'll make both through the Rare Disease Club, the different work you're doing here on campus, and obviously as a genetic counselor. So thanks again, Brynna.
Thanks so much for having me, Ivan. I really appreciate it.